Welcome back to another Wright Stew podcast. I am Paul Stewart.
And I am Brian Wright, and we're here on Sunday morning, halfway through the weekend. When does your weekend start, and when do you feel like your weekend ends, Paul?
Yeah, definitely Friday. Yeah, kind of late afternoonish, depending on what's going on with work stuff. Roll into it, and then Sundays can be a little tricky, right? You got church going on. We got some softball. We're gonna be at another softball game today. We were at softball yesterday. Kind of wipes out your whole day. You know, we do the travel baseball circuit, and that's it's kind of like a job on top of a job sometimes. So sometimes your weekends aren't.
So you have a time on Sunday where it's like, the weekend's over on Sunday.
Man, you know what it used to be as a kid, right? I loved Fox's like lineup of shows. So it was like The Simpsons, and then In Living Color came on, and then Married with Children.
Yeah.
And probably not a great idea that my dad let me watch Married with Children, but we watched it, and
Well,
it was
that definitely introduced you to good humor.
yeah. And then like America's Funniest Home Video used to come on Sunday night. Kind of when those shows started coming on, I was like, crap, time to get some homework done. Yeah, hadn't done it all weekend. And then, rush through a couple of assignments, throw some things on paper. But it sounds like you have a very definitive answer. Like,
Well, no,
what is
I
yours?
don't. I definitely start thinking about, like 9 or 10 o'clock on Sunday is
Oh,
over.
so it's late. So the weekend's over. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's not. I mean, I guess it is. I mean, it's not technically Monday. I guess there, and maybe sometimes earlier, depending on what I've got going on the next day. The worst is if you have to travel on a Sunday for work. That's probably the
Or leave
worst.
Sunday afternoon to be there for a Monday
Yeah,
morning.
be there for
Yeah.
Monday. I think that's probably the worst. But no, I don't. I don't know. I definitely agree with you. Friday it begins, so I guess we're halfway over when you get past. By Sunday morning you're halfway over the weekend, which I've never put that much thought into it. But yeah, it's just interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but a couple of kind of interesting stories is Brian. It's sports relevant, but kind of just
It's Sunday morning, sports relevant.
Sunday morning sport. So the New York Yankees are loosening their guidelines and restrictions on facial hair. So for the longest time, they were mustaches at the corner of the mouth or clean shaven. And so now they're saying, hey, a tightly kept beard will be acceptable by New York Yankee standards. What was the rules for you at NC State or with the Cleveland Indians organization when
We
you?
had, and they have they. I don't know. I don't recall the Indians. That's always pretty clean. I mean, I remember if you let it get kind of scruffy, I think they would say something. But if you had a full beard in with the Indians, I don't remember saying anything. And I felt like it was kind of the same way with the when I was in NC State. It was very much my freshman sophomore year. I felt like it was the kind of the New York Yankees kind of way. Like
Yeah.
it had to be, and I don't think mustaches. That mustaches have really made a comeback. They
Oh, huge.
were.
Yeah.
I mean, they were kind of like if you saw somebody when we were 19 to 22, 23, 24 with a mustache, you thought they were being funny or you thought they may be a pedophile.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I remember, and you would have teams would do it kind of as like a
right,
team,
kind of as a joke. Yeah.
yeah. And I remember very vividly, uh, 2004. We were in Jacksonville, and it was Mother's. I remember it was Mother's Day, and I was pitching out of the bullpen that year. And for just some reason, I shaved in a mustache, and it was probably only like 3 or 4 days worth. But when you clean shave, everything else it stands out.
Yeah, yeah.
And I felt just like everybody in the stadium was looking at me like, oh, look at this dirt ball. Like this guy's who is
Yeah,
this
I mean, there's some prominent
mustache?
guys. I mean, Paul Skeens, as a young guy, obviously, pretty good player. He's got a pretty
Yeah.
strong mustache game. We think
Well,
about, guys who carried it for a long time and did well. Donnie Baseball carried a mustache, did it really well for a long time. Who
yeah,
was the
and I
guy?
think there
Magnum
were like,
PI?
oh well, yeah, Magnum PI, of course.
Yeah, Tom Selleck. He
Tom
carried it
Selleck,
well.
yeah. And I think it started coming back too with the movie Maverick, and Miles Teller, the actor, uh, had a mustache in the movie and looked good. It's a good looking mustache on him. I think some people can do it. Other people not as much. Anchorman, Will Ferrell had a pretty healthy.
Yeah, but I kind of think that was kind of a
That was the
play
time.
that
It
he's
was
a
a time
'70s porn,
period.
like the famous thing was like '70s porn stash, right? I guess.
Yeah,
I mean, my father when I was younger had a mustache, and now I can't imagine. I was never envisioned myself as a beard guy, and it's partially lazy, partially a little bit fat, so you can create a jawline,
yeah.
and partially not really trying to impress anybody anymore. So you're not. I mean, you know what I mean? Like you want to look clean, but you don't really like. I bet a younger Paul couldn't envision himself with a beard. How long have you been pimping the beard?
Same way. I never thought was hey, like I'm going to be a beard guy, but then they're just much more acceptable in society now. Like you didn't see a lot of beards growing up. There was a stint in the '90s when like Fu Manchus
Yeah,
or goatees became very, very popular.
yeah,
And I did kind of a little semi kind of one of those for a little bit, not a whole lot. But with the Milwaukee Brewers, it was clean shaven or mustache at the corner of your mouth, sideburns at the bottom of your earlobes. It was,
yeah,
and I think it was really adopted from like a military standpoint because that's what the military's rules and regulations are. And
yeah.
they were trying to instill discipline and have some sort of control over the guys. It was clean shaven, and a lot of that is kind of weird because I think some of that was taken from like a gas mask. When you put a mask on, you're supposed to have clean
You can have a
shaven.
tight seal around everywhere. If you have big
Yeah,
hairs along the edge, probably can't get
yeah.
a tight seal with a gas mask. That probably makes sense.
And I think that's why that rules. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's the
No,
reason.
that makes perfect sense. I've heard that the reason like we're able to grow beards is because it can like if you grew like a full beard, like if you got punched in the face, it would absorb it better,
I don't know if
right?
that's the reason.
Like
Like
micro evolutionary type stuff, right? Like if you got punched, and maybe that's why I got fat jaws, right? So I could
yeah.
absorb, I could
Next time
absorb
I
a
see next time I
punch.
see, I'm just gonna deck you, just sock you. Like, how'd that feel, Brian? With the facial hair help? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Now shave and tell me how that felt.
Yeah, no, but it's interesting how it's kind of come along, and then you have like Johnny Damon, who had this super big long beard. Brian Wilson had the big black beard going on with the San Francisco Giants, and facial hair has been kind of Raleigh fingers with the handlebar mustache, and for the '70s with the A's sort of thing. So there have been a lot of guys who have kind of unique facial hair, and kind of becomes their thing
But
for
you've
a little
always had
bit.
to get rid of it when you went to the Yankees.
Yeah, absolutely. So Johnny Damon, he had to shave his whole beard, had to, cut his hair, a clean look sort of thing. Wade Boggs always had a mustache. I think he kind of went with and without the mustache for a little bit more. Whenever to the Yankees, had a mustache, and so now they're letting it go a little bit.
So, like it or not like it, I'm telling you what's getting ready to change. There's getting ready to be big pimp jobs. I don't know if you watch many spring training games. I've seen a handful, but they're everything is being pimped. You hit a bomb, like I saw a guy almost sling his bat like he was playing men's league softball in a spring training game after he hit a bomb.
Yeah.
And Soto hit a bomb his first AB against the Mets,
Yeah.
and he didn't really pimp it that much. But man, I think the days of hitting a bomb, dropping your bat, running around the bases like you've done it before are behind us. I see it in college baseball left and right, and I see it in and even professional baseball in spring training where you used to never see it left and right.
No.
So that's getting ready to change. But yeah, it's interesting. Hey, another one you brought up to me before we got on was Bryce Harper getting a tattoo with a Philly fanatic.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he's going to be in Philly the rest of his career. You get a Philly fanatic tattoo on your forearm there.
That is commitment.
And that's another thing. And again in the '90s, like you didn't see a whole lot of guys with beards. And if you had tattoos,
They were starting to come.
they were starting to come around, and I always kind of joked around. I would tell my mom, I was like, I'm gonna get a tattoo when I get 18. It's gonna be a baseball with flames on it, and like that was. And looking back, I'm like, probably wouldn't have been the greatest idea. And I don't have any tattoos right now at all, and have no desire to have any. And if I did, it'd probably be something around like my wife and kids sort of thing. But yeah, man. So Harper's got, he's got a lot. But you see these guys come up with like full sleeves and tatted all over, and you see it a lot in the NBA, especially in the NFL. Just tattoos everywhere, man.
And what always just amazes me is like you'll see like a kid playing football, and they're like, "Oh, he's a freshman. Well, he's got a full sleeve of tattoos." Right? I
Yeah,
mean, it always amazes me. First of all, I think it looks better. Tattoos in general look better on darker skin, and so because they're there, you notice them, but it's not like just in your face the difference between lighter skin and tattoos. So I think it
yeah.
looks better on darker skin, but it has like I felt it. We had a group of guys, not necessarily a group, but we had a handful of guys who went got into college, and I could never get to a point where I felt like I could live with something the rest of my life. That I think that was kind of my deal. Obviously, we know now if you have enough money,
Oh,
you
you get
can
removed,
get rid
yeah.
of them.
Yeah, Pete Davidson just got a bunch of his removed, yeah. But there's and you didn't see like I didn't see a ton of it when in my minor league time. There's a handful of guys, and it was typically something very baseball related, favorite team,
Well, you got to
draft
remember
situation.
the barbed wire
The
had,
barbed wire, or like the tribal thing around your bicep or forearm. That
and
was
you could
really
tell
big.
whether you're a real man or not if you went all the way on that tender skin on the inside of your arm, or you kind of went and stopped it.
Cut
If you
off a
stopped
little
it,
bit,
you're kind
yeah.
of a poof. You know.
Yeah. And I don't know, maybe in this the vest jerseys were pretty big, so maybe you go vest with no sleeves and then show your tats off. Maybe
I
that's a
did. We had vest jerseys in high school. I did like them. I like the look of them.
the vest jerseys were really comfortable. I like
Hey, the trend of the pants going above the kney is coming on strong too. I've seen it in a number of college games.
we've talked
It,
about that. That's awful.
yeah, that's a bad trend that's coming too. I can accept beards. I can accept, Philly fanatic tattoos, but the pants above the knees, that's no
It's
bueno. It
it's
looks
bad.
terrible.
So what direction do we go if one of our players is doing that for our travel team? Do we just shut it down?
I think it's hard, right? Because you got to have custom pants to be able to do it and make it look good. Because you don't want the
Yeah, I've seen kids
bulkiness.
do it and they like bunch them all up and it looks just
And so, but the
it's
ones I've seen in
stupid.
college, dude, they're cut. They're cut like a you know 18
They're almost like
whatever your inseam
football
is down to
pants.
your knee. Yeah, basically football pants are shorter. And so it's really incredible.
I don't know what's the point of it though. It doesn't make any sense to me.
I think you know
Have you asked anybody?
I think it's a combination of a couple of things. When they're young, it's clearly just style, right?
You're mimicking Fernando Tatis Jr. Yeah.
Yes, and then when they're older, I don't know. Maybe they feel like I always felt like I could run better in shorts than I could pants. Like as being an athlete, I always liked loose pants. I was never a tight pant guy. I like to be able
And
to
I know
feel.
you like to squeeze them
Yeah, I
open
was
A
never.
styles.
My freshman year in college, I had some tighties too, boy, where it was like you show every curve. If I had a bump on my leg, you could see it through my pants. But after that, I mean,
Let
really,
me put the extra big cup on today. Look.
no. And I was an outfielder, so I was wearing no cup.
Uh,
Just showing the 2 inches down there, and so you know, it was. I mean, it is what it is at this point in my life. But it was, you know, I did, but that was just the pants I was given, right?
yeah. Well, that's why I
But
started wearing, especially in pro ball. Like in high school, I had my pants up, but then you get in pro ball, and believe it or not, folks, you don't get like the super nice custom stuff.
until
The,
you're in the big
the
leagues.
organization, at least during my time, the organization, like I played for the Ogden Raptors and the Beloit Snappers and the Huntsville Stars. They own the jerseys. It's not the Milwaukee Brewers or the farm team, right? It's the actual team you go to. And so there, some of them are spending a little more money than others. I went to Altoona my last year, and they had a ton of stuff. Like they were doing really well, so they're buying all kinds of uniforms. But dude, I remember I went to Huntsville. We had pants that were old. Like this is the beginning of the season.
And that's
Pants
double
had
A too, right?
holes in them. Yeah, they didn't have new socks for us. They had old socks. We were like reusing
Ugh.
socks. I mean, it was awful, dude. And then sometimes, so that's why I say I started wearing my pants up in the minor leagues primarily because just never had pants that fit very well.
And you weren't a 3/4 guy.
No,
early
that's
80s.
a really bad look. I never cared for
I
that.
think some guys could pull it off. Chipper pulled it off a little bit early on, a little bit
Yeah,
three
then he
quarters,
went all the way out. But there was
and then he went all the way up.
I did like a couple of the teams I played for had the real stirrups, like with the sanitaries and then the real stirrups underneath. I always liked that a lot. I thought that was a really just like classic throwback
I
look.
didn't like how they felt my shoe. I'm a solid sock. I am. Yeah, I'm not a two sock in the shoe. I could feel that little thing underneath
The little
your
stirrup underneath
midfoot.
your yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was not a fan of that. But if
Did
you
you
were
like the
doing
did you like
tattoos
the
now,
look
would
of
it
it?
just? I say that again.
Did you like the look of the stirrup?
I like the look. They had the one sock that
Oh,
had it
the
kind
two
of.
and ones. Greg Maddox loved the two and ones. Yeah, oh he loved those things.
Oh, speaking of Greg Maddox, I saw where the last 2 years when Eddie Perez was his catcher,
He
it
called his
never.
own yeah, he called his own game.
Yes, with signs from the pitcher how he received the ball. Did
Yeah.
you already know this?
I know I think I saw the same thing. Yeah. But go ahead and explain it.
Yeah, no, no, no. You go ahead. Did you? But like, if it was like an outside fastball, he'd catch it like in close to his chest. So if it's an inside fastball, he'd catch it out. If he wanted a breaking ball, he would, wipe his nose. If he wanted, I mean, he was calling his own game to Eddie Perez for like the last couple years, and it never got picked up. I mean, nobody's ever mentioned that until it just recently
He
came.
just
At
recently
least I've
said
seen
it,
it.
yeah. Yeah, so it's wild. So basically, Eddie Perez would throw the ball back to Greg Maddox, and depending on if he caught the ball fingers up, fingers down, sideways, and a couple other gestures, wiping his leg, things like that, that's what pitch was going to be the next pitch. And Eddie Perez said that he's like, yes, last 2 or 3 years, whatever it was, and nobody ever picked it up,
I mean, that's
and
incredible, dude.
that's crazy. Yeah, that's crazy. And that's something pretty interesting too, like the way catchers and pitchers kind of communicate and give and receive signs, and especially as you get to higher levels. Um,
Not anymore, bro.
well, it's all pitch cast now. Yeah, it's all audio or digital. But back in the day, you had to be kind of creative with it a little bit because I remember there's when you get a guy on second base, especially. You start thinking, hey, they're going to start picking up signs and things like that. And I remember I got on second base a couple times as I got to double A and was hitting as a pitcher. And I was like, I'm going to try to steal these signs. I'm going to pick this up. And I was so well. So first of all, I had terrible vision, and
Yeah,
I could barely see the signs. I couldn't see the signs.
from the
The
pitcher's
pitcher's
mound.
mound. I don't know why I thought I was actually going to steal the signs from second base. And then I hear the shortstop back there just kind of jockeying with me, and I hear his feet
And
shuffling.
you're not really a base runner at this point
Yeah,
in your
and I
life.
was a good base runner in high school, but it's been 6 years since I've really done that. Something like, or 4 or 5, whatever it is. And so I'm like, dude, I don't want to get picked off here. That's my main mission. So I stopped worrying about the signs and worried about just being the best base runner I could be at the time. But we ended up doing some pretty what I thought were pretty elaborate signs as a pitcher. So we would use because I couldn't see the fingers. So if you think about this, a lot of the stadiums we went to
Darker.
didn't have the best lights.
Yeah.
And so when the catcher, when he squatted over and he's putting his fingers between his legs, there's
It's
a lot of
shadowed
shadows,
already.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of tough for me to see. And I've actually have a condition in my eye called keratoconus. I've actually had a cornea transplant in my left eye, and then my right eye, if I don't have my contacts in, is pretty terrible. But so rather than throw down numbers, like so traditionally you put down a 1 for a fastball, 2 for a curve, 3 for a slider, and then like wiggles for a changeup. What we started going to was like a pump system. So the number of times the catcher would pump fingers down would be what I would go off of. So we would always start with the number 2, right? And it was like a circle. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 and 5 being fastballs, 2 curveball, 3 slider, 4 changeup. And so we would start with the number 2. So he would put down numbers, but the numbers meant nothing. I was just seeing how many times he threw things down. So if he wanted a fastball, he'd go 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
So that's fastball. If I wanted something different, I would swipe up or swipe down with my glove. So we were adding and subtracting to it. And so I worked with some catchers and we got really good at it. We were just flying through. And most of the time, the catcher, whatever he threw down there, I was throwing anyway because we had good rhythm. But that was something I had to do because I couldn't see. And then I started doing touches as well, like to the top of the shin guards and to the shoulders, this, and then he throw down side. So again, that was really easy for me to see, right? The visual of that. So we usually do second or third touch, whatever it was on the for the
Yeah,
catch.
and a lot of times that's how it's relayed from the dugout to the catcher, at least at lower levels. And I definitely played with guys who did touches.
Yeah,
And dude, I was watching a YouTube kind of recap summary of IGA, right? And they're a
yeah,
high school team using pitch comp. And
really. Yeah.
so where the catcher had the earpiece, the pitcher has the earpiece in his hat. Um, so all the way down to those levels is the pitch comp.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
and it's interesting too. And one of the things that I think we're missing, and this is a little bit of a soapbox though, we have too many coaches calling too many pitches,
I agree 100%.
and we're not letting the
Especially early
kids.
on.
Yeah, man, like we're not letting the kids learn and develop. It's like, hey, I called a fastball away. It's like, well, coach, I can barely throw a strike. Let me just. And Nolan McLean, we talked to him, talked about that, and I thought it was crazy. Like even in double, he's like, I'm just setting up in the middle, and if I miss, I'm missing with movement, right? So it might be something we adopt as a coaching staff.
Well, I definitely think so. And I definitely like the idea, maybe in certain environments where you feel a higher pressure deal, yeah, or if you have kids throwing, 1-0 curveballs and,
Yeah,
where
yeah,
you try to set the standard. But I like the idea of setting up middle. That's Trevor Bauer's thing. Set up middle until you get two strikes, and then we'll try to do something maybe a little bit
yeah,
off the
yeah.
plate. But it is, I've heard different things. So after that conversation, I asked the kid who's at, I think he's at UNC at Pembroke, and they don't. They're depending on what the situation is. They're not middle.
Yeah.
So it probably depends on what your stuff is, how much run you got, and,
Yeah, I mean, it helps to
probably
throw
makes sense.
95. Yeah, with one of the best breaking balls in the minor leagues.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I tell you what else is interesting still with college baseball. They still can do the mega shift. They still can do the
Oh,
mega
really?
shift with a guy playing the second baseman playing like short right field,
On the
shortstop
other
playing
side, yeah.
playing over. And I've seen a lot of that early in the season. We're talking 5 or 6 games into the season. Somehow they got a good enough scouting report that they feel comfortable enough shifting
Well,
on them.
they've seen them from the previous couple of years, or wherever it is. And
I'm laying that bunt down, dude. If I'm a left-hander, even if I'm hitting in the 3 hole, and if it's early and there's not an opportunity to drive a guy in on second at third, I'm laying that bunt down. That's a hit all day long. I cannot
could turn
relate to
into a
that.
double if you push it hard enough.
Yes, and we've seen that in MLB stuff, right? And
Yeah,
so, yeah, I hate the shift in one aspect, and I hate guys who don't try to just beat it with just sound logic because the reality is, dude, you're going to be able to get out of bunt 2 out of 4 times, and you're going to. I don't know. It wouldn't have happened in the '80s because guys would lay down bunts. That's the reason it didn't happen in the '80s,
guys
even with
bunt
all the
it.
pull
Guys bunt
guys
it
that there
anyway.
were.
Yeah,
But anyway,
yeah. Yeah. There's something to, and I remember in Beloit in 1998, we kept spray charts, right? And we had like a little bag of colored pencils, and each pitcher on our team had a different colored pencil, so you can see lefty, righty sort of thing. And I think we kept it all year. We might have kind of petered off at the end, but I remember we kept it, and we would shift guys like a foot or two,
yeah,
and you would see a chart. It was like clearly this guy does nothing but pull the ball.
yeah.
And I even thought it then. I was like, why don't we just move more?
Everybody to that side.
Yeah, and because like it's like clearly we've been keeping this data. Like, what are we doing with it if
Yeah.
we're not actually using it? But my manager was Don Money, who was a played in the
Old school.
70s and 80s, the Giants and or actually Phillies and Brewers, and just an old school baseball. He's like, screw that stupid. Third baseman plays here, second, yeah, he's just an old school guy, right?
So you were ahead of the game. You wanted to shift back in the '90s.
Yeah, and I don't think I would have been as crazy as what they ended up doing, but I would have certainly shifted guys. Maybe
5, 6,
maybe
8,
like
10
they
feet.
do now, where like second baseman is like almost behind the bag, shortstop's more in the 5, 6 hole sort of thing, right? But you saw those guys, and you knew it was going to happen. It's like, oh, why am I doing that? am I doing this chart just to keep me busy? Yeah, so
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I tell you,
whoever.
it's really changed too because there were so many. At least it felt like back in our day, there were so many guys who had such harder tendencies too. Right now, you're kind of encouraged to hit the ball to all fields, but there were so many guys. I can remember so many guys who would come up in the big leagues like, well, he's been an all pull guy his whole career, and they're really trying to work on him going to backside now that he's made it to the big leagues. And it's like, huh. It's like it's whatever's gotten you here. And I think that's kind of one of the things with teaching hitting today. I think sometimes we can get so into working on that weakness because most people backside that is their weakness. Backside is their weakness.
Yeah.
That we never develop the strength, which is the pull side, right? And so there's some balance there. And as a hitter, right, you want to be balanced to be able to hit balls to all fields, and
Yeah, I remember.
but
I remember my uncle, who I've shared stories about, took me to that game in D.C. And I remember I went up and saw my cousin play a game, and yeah, he's a few years younger than me. And this was a fall ball game in like October or something, and we went to watch. We were having a good time, and the coach that he had though was all about like backside hitting ground balls, moving guys over. But my uncle was like, it's like, when are we gonna hit the ball in the gap every once in a while? When are we gonna drive somebody in? He's like, these guys get all crazy and psyched up and slapping high fives about a ground ball to second base. How about we hit the ball in the gap? How about we hit one over
yeah.
there? And he would get all worked up. It was pretty funny, but I saw his point too, though, because it was like, the swings the kids were taking weren't like really effective swings. They were just like all arm, just kind of throwing hands at the ball, sort of thing. And
No, that's a great point. And I tell you, so Billy Bass was my coach. He came
yeah,
up with Kansas City, and then he's been a scout for the Braves forever, probably the last 20 plus years. And but when I was a freshman, dude, he really, and I think he would even admit it now. He almost ruined some guys because we would have rounds at BP where it literally hit a ground ball to shortstop. Now I
from a
was
lefty. So Brian was a left-handed hitter, and so yeah, that
yeah,
was
or a right-handed hitter would have hit a ground ball to second base,
like,
and
yeah.
and so it was, I think in my mind, I did it to be obedient to the drill, but I never thought about that any other time. But I think it really ruins some guys to start guiding the ball the other way, opposed to
Well, it
trying to
changes your
drive the ball.
swing. You do some different
Yeah,
things.
you're
Yeah.
doing things differently. That again, you got to let your strength be your strength. And I don't know. Obviously, kids are a lot better than we were back in the day. They're stronger. Their barrels. There's things
Well,
that are being taught.
there's more technology. They have guys like you and I who could go out there and coach and say, "Hey, let's." And when I'm warming my kids up in the batting cages, and I'm sure you're similar with your son, we start on the tee. And I've got one lefty and two righty hitters right now. I guess three righty hitters. But that's the little one. We're not doing teamwork yet. But first we go on the tee, and for the righties to say, all right, let's hit line drives over the second baseman's head. And we put the ball deeper in the zone. Let's work on hitting that ball away. And then with the lefty, same thing over the shortstop's head. But it's again just to let the ball travel, see the ball drive, and then we move the ball to the middle, then we move the ball to the inside, and kind of work on all three aspects. And then we do some front toss, and then move into
No,
long.
I think I like a routine. I'm not a huge. I think with younger kids, and I probably screwed up because I really never hit off the tee until I went to college. It just wasn't a thing when I came through, and I
We did,
kind of
yeah, minimally. We did it minimally.
yeah, yeah. And so I kind of started with my son. Hey, hit off tee, even doing high tee and stuff like that. And I think that
Yeah.
probably setting back. And so we went back. We do a little side toss, is force and hand eye, and then we do front toss, and then go live, and then I'll try to see how many real bullets I have in my elbow and shoulder, which aren't many. They're not many. It's got to be about 45 feet, and I got to be going at about all I got to be able to juice it up there.
Get it close to him, yeah.
Yeah, but I think the tee is great once you kind of develop. Like your daughters are in college. I think that's great, and your son's getting older now too. But I do think the tee sometimes it develops this robotic swing with not enough flexibility, adjustability in the swing.
Yeah.
And so but there's a lot of guys that would disagree
Again,
with
I think
that.
it's not the only thing we do, but I think it's a good warm up. It's
But
a
no,
good
no,
thing to
and I'm
combine
not
with, yeah.
arguing with it at all. I'm not
Yeah, yeah.
arguing with it at all.
And especially for my lefty, if you watch a lot of college softball, lefties like 90% of the time get the screwball pitch, which moves away from a lefty. And man, we saw some really, really wide zones, and especially in high school. Like she was getting called. And Brian, I would send you some of the videos just because I had to vent to somebody, and I
Yeah,
knew you would,
yeah, it was bad. It was
being a
bad.
lefty yourself, and it
Be
was
like
like,
a two softballs off, and the
well,
softballs are pretty dang big.
girls would set
Yeah.
up off the plate and then catch it outside of their left knee, and like there's literally one game. And Brian, we've talked about this. The more I talk, the more I sound like a nutbag. But I was I was sitting behind the plate, and I saw the first pitch was a ball off the plate, strike. I'm like,
All right.
dang it. Second pitch, like on the white line, but the girl sat there, caught it in the middle of her body. Strike two. I'm like, it's like three balls off the plate. I said that. I was like, it's three balls off the plate. Like she can't reach that. The next one, she sets up a little further out and literally catches it like off her left knee. Strike three. I'm like, it's like, dude, you took the bat out of her hand. Like she had no chance at any of those pitches. And and then he kind of looked back at me and gave me the, and I'm like, I told my wife, I was like, I cannot sit here and watch this.
Right. This is a travesty.
So I literally
Yeah.
walked out and watched the rest of the game from the left field corner because I just couldn't.
I
I
wasn't
was,
a big move around in the box guy. I kind of like being where I was being, no matter who I was facing. So if it's
yeah.
velocity, especially when I got to a certain age. But if I felt like they were giving a bunch, I would just stand on it. I would be all over
Put
it.
your toes on the line. Yeah.
Yeah, put my toes on it. And usually, after your first at bat, and really after your first couple of pitches, especially some of those lefties were funky, right? They had that low arm slot, felt like the ball was shooting out of right field and somehow
Yeah.
still getting there. And so I would cheat sometimes that way. But yeah, it's tough, man. The umpire situation is not ideal. And if it's 3 or 4 balls off, there's not a whole lot you can do
You
anyway.
can't. Yeah. And I remember we used to not get mad at her, but like, hey, you gotta fight. You just gotta fight that off. You gotta. And then I started seeing him like, well, dang, like I couldn't fight that off with a
Right. You're
with
six
a
six with long
42-inch
arms.
bat. Yeah, like there's nothing. And again, I think it was just. I think I saw more bad calls on her than my righty daughter for sure. It felt like, and I don't know why, but just I don't know. Maybe guys just jealous of you lefties.
Yeah. Well, speaking of jealous, we'll pack down to 3-3. Again, couldn't watch the game because it's on
Hmm.
D1 baseball. Got
Yeah,
beat 4-0 by Alabama. And so they got their kind of weekend game, well, last game of the weekend down in Miami, or I believe they're in Miami, on Sunday. And
so
so
they're gonna drop out of the top 25 probably, huh?
I would say so. I would say some really bad losses. Alabama's okay, but Ohio State's not that good. They got beat
Yeah,
by Coastal today. And the coach from Campbell went to Ohio State, and
yeah.
so I'm sure he will turn it around.
Well, I think he had some like ungodly number of kids left Campbell and followed him to Ohio State,
Which
right?
makes a ton of sense because Campbell's not what they usually are, and
Yeah.
I feel like, and I don't know him from Adam's house cat, but I feel like he was one of the few. But all of a sudden, you hear about a guy like there was back-to-back years. They had first-round picks out of Bowies Creek, North Carolina, a
But
shortstop and a pitcher.
hey, I'm a Campbell grad, buddy. So I
Oh
was
yeah. So I forget. I put you at NC State, but yes, you are a Campbell grad.
yeah.
Um, and so I think they did a really good job recruiting. As we move into that with our kids, I don't really know exactly how it looks. I feel like it's a lot through the travel. Obviously you got to perform at those things and stand out, and you got to meet some metrics in regards to whatever position you play. But I feel like they really recruited kids because kids would go there kind of either undersized or unknown, and all of a sudden by the time they're a sophomore or junior, they're talking, top 2, 3, 4,
It
5
felt like
rounds.
it felt like they really developed and truly had a good
And
program.
so Ohio State has them a good coach up there. He will win. He
Man, I'll
will
tell
win.
you what, you go for, and so I love Campbell. I think it's great, but I mean, the facilities at Campbell, they can't compare. It's not even the same world as Ohio State. I mean, just so much money up there. And man, you think about a lot of those schools and like Big Ten schools. I feel like back in the day, like Michigan had some relevancy, but maybe like Indiana occasionally, but none
Well,
of these
Indiana the
schools.
last few years, Michigan, they had a coach, old ECU grad, who was up there, did really well, and he just
Yeah.
left and maybe went somewhere else. Clemson. I don't even know where he ended up, but he left Michigan, or maybe it's somewhere in the SEC. But they have money. But you got to think about it, man. You got to sell. I guess you can pay players now, and they probably can pay more. So I guess
But so like I might take a little less to be in warmer weather. Honestly, like
I would at 45 is 100%.
yeah, I don't 18, 19. I don't know, but man, I may take a little less to play, where where I feel like I can stay warm all the time.
Well,
Just
stay warm and have a chance to get on the field. I mean, I think about the guys,
yeah,
the guys that left. You watch any game, any college game, there's nobody who's been there well, I should say no. Very few guys have been there all 4 years. Like I saw Braswell, third baseman for LSU. His first 2 years, he's a third baseman at South Carolina. And then his last 2 years, he's a third
yeah.
baseman at LSU. And it's like, what can LSU provide you that South Carolina
South
couldn't?
Carolina, too.
And so probably a little bit more money. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean
And I
those
don't blame the kids. I don't like it, but I don't blame the kids. I would do the
yeah.
same thing.
Go get it. Go get it, young men and young women. If you can get it, go get it. And
Hey, so go watch your softball today.
yeah, we'll be up in actually driving to Lynchburg, Virginia today, and we'll be up there watching some more softball. So, what? Hey, thanks for listening. Thanks for listening. We appreciate you guys listening today. Hey, make sure you continue to like, subscribe, and continue buying those t-shirts and hoodies. It's perfect. Coming up on perfect season for like long sleeve t-shirt and hoodie weather. Gonna have some kind of a little chilly in the morning, maybe a ball cap as you're at your favorite sporting event, right? Go check out the merch shop, get you a hat, get you a long sleeve tee, and then tell people about the Right Suit podcast. But we appreciate that, and we appreciate y'all listening.
Out, go pack. 3-3.